To give you a sense of how Timebinder works with data, I'm going to walk you through making a basic stock chart from an Excel spreadsheet. First, we need to bring in some data to work with. Since the data we're interested in is in an Excel spreadsheet, select the Excel import module from under the Data menu. Using the file browser, locate the file you're interested in. For this example, I'm going to use f2006.xls, which contains historical stock data for an American car company in 2006. The Excel import module default settings usually do a pretty good job with this kind of well-formatted data. I'll quickly check the settings and then hit Open. Timebinder has imported the data. You can see there is now an import data set in the data tray, and the data view is displaying data. Nothing is showing in the render area because we're looking at the current date and our data is back in 2006. Shift-click on the Zoom tool to bring all the data into view. When data first comes into Timebinder, it is represented in the render area as simple dots. Each of these dots is an event in time. To get a more detailed picture of that data, we need to add some attributes. Since we are looking at numeric data, the first attribute we'll add is a Y-scale. Select Y-scale from the Attributes menu in the Render menu. Note that we now have controls for a Y-scale in the render tray, and an unformatted Y-scale is displayed in the render area. Next, we need to add a column plotter to plot our data against the Y-scale. Select Column Plotter from the Attributes menu in the Render menu. The column plotter defaults to the first numeric column the dataset is applied to. In this case, that's not the one we want. Change the column setting in the column plotter to Close. Note that the Y-scale has done a pretty good job of reconfiguring to accommodate the data being plotted. However, I'd like this graph to be a little more dramatic, so I'm going to change the bottom of the Y-scale from 0 to 3. I'm done with the Y-scale for now, so I'm going to hide its controls by clicking the disclosure arrow on the right side of the attribute. For clarity, let's add a connecting line to the plotted points. Select Connecting Line from the Attributes menu. I also want to show trading volume in this graph. There are a few ways I can do that, but in the interest of flexibility, I'm going to do it by adding a new timeline. Select New Timeline from the Render menu. Note that we can see a bunch of event markers in the middle of our graph. These are the events in the data represented on our new timeline. Since volume can't be plotted at the same scale as closing price, we're going to start by adding a second Y-scale. Select the new timeline in the render tray and select Y-scale from the Attributes menu. Note that by default, it appears on the left-hand side of the render area. Move it to the right by selecting Right from the Locate pull-down menu. In order to avoid future confusion, let's name our Y-scales. I'm going to name them Volume Scale and Price Scale. Select Stacked Bar from the Attributes menu. Note that by default, both the scale and source column are not what we want. Change Scale to Volume Scale and Source 1 to Volume. We're starting to see some patterns. Now, let's clean up our graph. I'm going to adjust the Y-scales a bit to reduce overlap. Now that we have a pretty good layout, let's add some color for clarity and visual interest. Select Price Timeline and add the color attribute from the Attributes menu. Change the color by double-clicking on the swatch and selecting the color you want. To change the color on the bar graph, double-click on the swatch at the bottom of the stacked bar controls. Finally, add a legend by selecting the legend attribute from the Attributes menu. And that is how a simple two-axis graph is created in Timebinder. Keep an eye out for upcoming videos detailing other features. For more information, please visit our website at www.graphient.com.